welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton, and today we are going to talk with Healthy Families consultant Alvean Lyons about self-esteem. Alvean, welcome.
Thanks, good morning.
I'm going to start with, in some ways self-esteem has become this buzzword, and then it got a bad rap. It was sort of like, oh, you're trying to make your kids feel great about everything, and it was the trophy idea. But why is it important to have healthy self-esteem?
I mean, it's so essential to so many different things. I mean, if we talk about it from a larger framework, how we make decisions in our lives, I'll use a slightly bigger word, trajectory of our life, sort of the direction in which it goes, how we relate to people, how we relate to ourselves, what we try and won't try, the risk we take and don't take, the dreams we pursue and don't pursue, are often based on self-esteem. If you think about self-esteem as a foundation and a house, if your foundation is cracked, your house structure is always going to be shaky. So self-esteem is really the cornerstone, the baseline of everything. How I see me affects everything else that I do. All of my relationships, all of my ventures, all of my initiatives, they're all based on the me factor and all of that. And self-esteem is very much that me factor.
So is it always the same? If we didn't do the kids participation trophies, or if that didn't work, which I think that had some artificialness to it.
Right.
But can you change your self-esteem, or is it, from second grade on the same?
Absolutely, you can change it. It is not a fixed concept, because when you think about it, self-esteem is really just the way that we view ourselves. It's our opinion about ourselves, the us that we see on the inside. So it's not necessarily the us that other people see. It's the us that we see. And that can change based on circumstances. It can change in different periods of your life. I mean, quite frankly, you can have very high self-esteem at certain points in your life. Things are going very well for you.
Exactly.
People are giving you all that wonderful affirmation that you're great, you're amazing, you're thoughtful, whatever that is, that makes you feel wonderful, and you're playing that sort of back in your head, so you're feeling good about yourself. But conversely, you can have an experience where things are just not quite coming together right now in your life, no matter how young or how old, because this is really the truth for both kids and adults. So none of us are void of these experiences. So if you're in a period of time when things are not going particularly well for you, and you're talking to yourself about all of those things, it changes your self-concept. So it is fluctuating, which means that we can do things that help to raise it, and we can also do things that actually pull it down. So we're, of course, going to talk about how do we raise it? How do we lift it? Absolutely.
How do we raise it?
Okay, so we're going to use the word lift so that we remember this. Okay, so that notion of bringing it up intentionally. Let's start first with L, letting go. A lot of times when we try something new and it doesn't work out, we tend to punish ourselves on the inside about it. Our failures, what we should have done, how it should have gone, if we were only prepared better, if we were more like this person or more like that person. And that kind of dialogue, and you will hear me reference interior dialogue over and over again, or inner dialogue. That kind of dialogue about the mistakes that we make does not empower us at all. It doesn't help us in any way. And a lot of times we feel like if we punish ourselves, if I had just been better at this, and next time I'll do a better job, that somehow that's going to encourage us to do better. But you're doing quite the opposite. Nobody is shamed into increase. Nobody's shamed into higher levels of performance or seeing themselves as a better human being. When we are critical of ourselves in those kinds of ways, when it's always about what we didn't do and what we should have done, then we are working against ourselves. We are becoming our own enemy.
So there's a way to be self-critical and replay it back and say, at this point, I could have done this differently, and next time I will, and you move on. And there's what you're talking about, which is where you just play it over and over again, and beat yourself up about that, rather than learning from it and letting go.
Exactly. And I would even go so far as to say, rather than thinking about it in terms of being self-critical, because we don't have to be critical with ourselves at all. We're not under any obligation to be critical to ourselves. We have enough negativity in the world. We don't have to help out. That's gotten the popular vote already. We can do some really good things to and for ourselves. So rather, I would say to self-evaluate.
Oh, okay. That's
let's look at what we did.
Because what we did right as well as what
absolutely,
we would
because
have done
there were
differently.
strengths and weaknesses to the things that we did. Nobody is absolutely wrong and nobody is absolutely right ever, no matter how good or bad a situation is. So we're evaluating how this thing worked for or against us, which allows us, as a sort of secondary L, to learn from the experience. Because when we're learning from something, that's an empowering experience. I know something more than I knew before.
Right.
I know that I don't need to try out for football. I'm not a football player. I know that these national fitness challenges are not my thing at 40-something years old. I know this now rather than it being about how I failed.
So, or if you're applying for a job and you didn't get it,
oh, absolutely.
You look at those interviews and think of how you can answer better, how you can be better in a situation, and not just beat yourself up for not
about what you
getting
didn't do.
Right.
That's exactly right. You can learn from those instead. So let go of the negativity of the experience and learn from the positive components of that in terms of what I can do and shouldn't do next time around. So that is an empowering thing. And when we're lifting our self-esteem, it's all about the personal empowerment and all. So that's our L. Then we go to I, inner voice. We have to be honest about and acknowledge what our inner voice sounds like. Gosh, if you think about it like a song that gets stuck in your head. You're in the car, you play a song, and you get out of the car and that song is still replaying. You could have heard it when you're falling asleep and it's still, you wake up in the morning, you're still hearing the song. Well, that is very much how our inner voice works. That if we're saying certain things to ourselves, we are sort of playing this song in the back of our heads all the time. Now, the question is that song, the lyrics of that song, working for you or against you? Are those lyrics friendly to you or are they an enemy to you? What do you say about yourself when you're going through things? Do you pat yourself on the back even? Go ahead, you look at it.
I don't. But I'm thinking those are almost reversed because you have to hear the inner voice before you can let it go.
Right.
And I know I know it's playing back there, and I just push it to the back and try not to think about it because it's depressing,
Right.
But it doesn't make it really go away.
Right.
It creeps right out every time I do something else wrong, and then it's like, oh, Robin, you also messed this up and this and this and this and this, and so it's all back there.
And if we don't acknowledge that it's back there, we can't even address the issue. We can't even start to say, hold on a second. That was unnecessarily critical. That wasn't evaluative. That didn't help me become better at what I do as Robin McCormick. I was not good to myself in that analysis. So instead, let's evaluate, like we said, what works and what didn't work, to do certain things differently. Let's acknowledge the fact that there are strengths in what we did do. Is my inner voice working with me or is it working against me? But we have to acknowledge it. And the other thing we have to know is that our inner voice is often shaped by what has been said to us as well. So who we're spending time with, what we might hear as children. As parents, we have to be mindful that we are creating the inner voice for our kids. So if we are overly critical of our children, everything that they make mistakes about, we talk about 10 times. Every time they do something good, we barely talk about it once. Do know that we're setting a critical inner voice for our children because they tend to start talking to themselves the way we talked to them. And we talk to them the way we talk to ourselves. So it's this cyclical
cycle. And
experience.
They hear us
absolutely.
talk to ourselves. Oh, I shouldn't have done that, blah, blah, blah. I'm an idiot, and they'll pick that up
That was so dumb of me, right. And you're just...
I can't get anything right.
And you don't think anything of it because this is what you've always done, right? Like this is how we talk. This is what it sounds like. But we don't realize that we're also writing a script for someone else. We're also writing the lyrics for our children around us. So as we lift ours, it actually helps our children lift theirs because what we're saying out loud, even subconsciously, like the kids are hearing that too, which often helps them sort of model what it is that they should be doing with themselves. So we want that to be a very positive model. So paying attention to that inner voice really matters, acknowledging it, what it's doing, what it's saying, and making sure that it's working for us and not against us. Then we go to F, focus. Focus on the positive. We don't get to choose the facts. but we can choose our focus. So there are things that didn't go well. There are things we legitimately made a mess of.
Yep.
There are things that we, almost, in some occasions, intentionally did.
And I can count all of them. I can name all of them just from yesterday. But I don't think about the ones I got right.
Right.
Those don't stick.
Oh no,
Why is that?
100 people said something good, one person said something bad. We are completely focused on that one person that said something bad. We choose our focus. No, we don't. As I said, we don't get to choose the facts, but we do get to choose our focus. It's a perspective issue. I can look at all the things and say, I totally am horrible about A, B, C, and D. But do you take the time to point out the fact, but J and L and Z, you're fabulous at.
Right.
Those are things people could count on you for. Those are things that you're proud of yourself at the job that you do. You like doing all of these things, but we don't even look at those. We're so focused on what's missing rather than what we have, what we didn't do rather than what we did. We are choosing a focus that is not great for us, which is setting this interior reality of who we are that we refer to as our self-esteem. So we've got to be careful about what it is that we choose to focus on. That is absolutely, completely subjective. It is not decided by anybody else.
Right.
And when we look at some of the things that are happening throughout our world, there are kids that have experiences that would be devastating for our own children to be in. The lack of food, the lack of opportunity, the lack of safety. I mean, the list goes on. And yet, you will see these kids laughing and playing and kicking soccer balls and using cans for things, creating stuff out of empty bottles because they've chosen their focus. Now, for us looking at as adults, your life looks horrible based on the facts. But you're choosing a focus that allows you to still have joy in the most devastating experiences. If you can do that in real life experiences like that, the fact that we're beating ourselves up about a job interview that didn't go well, or an argument that we weren't supposed to have, that a conversation that went sideways, we don't have to choose those focuses. And those focuses are affecting the way we're seeing ourselves. So we really want to be careful about that.
Okay, and it's interesting. There are whole studies about this.
Oh,
my mind was
absolutely.
going about resilience and about where
That is
you
absolutely
choose
right.
to look and see yourself and move forward or get stuck where you are.
That is absolutely true. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we're even talking about, Kids Health talks about all the time. .org, you could take a look at some of those things. I mean, there are studies all over the place that parents can get their hands on that we as adults can use, because it's really, like I said, not any different for children as it is adults.
Right.
Those things align very, very closely. Generally, if you have a parent with very good self-esteem, their kids tend to have very good self-esteem. You have a parent with low self-esteem, their children typically have low self-esteem for the very reasons we mentioned previously. So we
pass those things
we
on.
pass them on as unintentional gifts to our children. And we want to pass on better gifts to our kids. So when we're better versions of ourselves, we help them be better versions of themselves. And the implications of those things are huge. What kids who feel good about themselves do and won't do is really different than kids who don't. It's when we're talking about, even in our community, when we're working on making sure that we're the healthiest, safest community to live in, if you've got kids who think highly of themselves, they don't take risky behaviors. They don't participate in those things. They don't make bad decisions intentionally because they value themselves and they value others. But when I think that there's very little left to my life, it's very easy to think nothing of your life. So there are major implications and minor ones to things just as simple as self-esteem that break down to very simple things for us on a daily basis. So I'll finish off with T.
Okay.
Treat yourself like you would treat your best friend. Most of us are really good friends.
Right.
When our friends mess up, we are so much nicer to them than we are to ourselves.
Oh, we wouldn't let them beat themselves up.
Absolutely not.
And we wouldn't beat them up.
Absolutely not. And yet we do it to ourselves all the time. It's very interesting that we'll find something for someone else that we will not give to ourselves. You're not harsh with your friends. When they don't look fabulous in something, you're like, look, you're entirely too cute to wear that. That's not working. Let's not do this. You're just so pretty. And that's not showing that off, or you're so handsome. And that just does not allow you to be everything that you really need to be where that's concerned. So being kind to them about the big things to the little things, but we're mean to ourselves. We're like, oh my God, I look like Miss Piggy in this. You know, like we say the harshest things to ourselves that we would not say to someone that we consider our friend.
We're not our own friends.
We're
most
not
of the
our own
time.
friends
A
too
lot of us
often.
aren't anyway, yeah.
Too often. So when we're talking about raising our self-esteem, you have to think about, would I talk to my best friend the way that I'm talking to myself? And if you can't say yes to that, then you probably should change what it is that you're saying to yourself. Your internal dialogue is not being good to you. You're not being your own best friend. So we have to make a conscious effort to treat ourselves like we would treat our best friends, to talk to ourselves the way that we would talk to our best friends. And in doing those things, we actually get the chance to lift our self-esteem. It is not a fixed place. It's not a fixed thing. It is a byproduct of what we do and don't do internally and externally.
And it has to be honest. And maybe this is where the whole thing about self-esteem and the trophies came in. You don't deserve a trophy for being
Right.
the best player, but you know what? Here's what you did do right.
Right.
You got out there. You got
Absolutely.
sunshine and fresh air and
Absolutely.
exercise, and you made friends, and you participated on a team, and you got a lot out of that.
And you
know?
were a good sport about it.
Right.
When you didn't do well.
You showed up when you didn't feel well.
Absolutely.
You did what you could. And if you were on
Absolutely.
the bench, you were there when you were called for, and you learned in practice.
And you cheered for your friends.
Right. So you be honest
Right.
about what you did right instead of beating yourself up.
About what you did wrong.
That's so easy to say, isn't it?
No. and then we don't do it. But it's a consciousness thing. We've got to raise certain things to our level of consciousness. You know, we all, in such a busy world, we're all just kind of going. So we don't often stop and think about what we're doing to ourselves. So if we could pause just momentarily, just here and there during the course of your day, to just be mindful as you're going through things, what it is you're doing and saying to yourself about what's happening around you. Then you could begin to do that identification and that evaluation that helps us move the levels that we need to lift things up a little bit higher. Because like I said, if we're a better us, everybody else benefits from us being our best selves. So be kinder to yourself.
Well, and the other thing is, if it's hard for you to do granted, we should all be able to fix ourselves, and that's a really
Right.
hard thing.
In a perfect world.
But our partners, our friends can help call us on some of these behaviors.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, I say to my partner when she's beating up on herself, I'll be like, don't be mean to my best friend.
Okay.
It's not right.
That's
you know?
exactly right. That's such a beautiful
And
way to
so
say it.
helping each other see those things and reframe the discussion can be a good thing.
That's a
We all
beautiful way to
you know, we
say
need
it.
supporters.
Oh, of course. You know, and that's what love is, you know, and we love our friends, we love our partners, we love our kids. And love is about sometimes being better to you than you are to yourself, to remind you that I see you as wonderful. You know, you're imperfect, we're all imperfect, but I see you as wonderful, and I'm not going to let you not see yourself as wonderful. Yes, we make mistakes, and so what? We can't do anything about what
no
already
one's perfect.
happened.
And I think that's part of it
Absolutely.
too. And social media, and you know, whenever you bump into people, they look perfect.
Right.
They look like they're doing everything right. And it's
Right.
easy to go, yeah, look at me instead.
Right.
But they're not either.
No. No.
They may just know how to put their best foot forward better.
That's
or,
exactly
you
right.
know, whatever it is they're suffering from behind the thing, you know, that we don't see.
It's true. It's true.
None of us have it
we're
all together.
all trying to figure it out, and we're all doing the best we can, but we just have to do it very consciously, because the better we are to ourselves, the better we're able to be to others. So even if you don't necessarily think you need it for you, care about others enough to do well for yourself, because you'll be able to do better for others. And especially if you're a parent, do it for your kids.
Oh, yeah.
Be good to you so that your kids will be good to themselves, because they will be good to their community as a result of that. So every piece matters. We are all connected in so many different ways, but we don't think about it most of the time.
So that's back to the I, but listening to that inner voice and acknowledging it.
Right.
Just realizing what's going on in there so that you can refocus and reframe the discussion and the sounds in your head. The
Absolutely.
little chorus.
Right. So you can be your own best friend.
Have some cheerleaders in there
Right.
instead of the critics.
Exactly. We're evaluating. We're not criticizing. Those are different.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
This,
Thank
you
you.
know, I could go on. I need more tips. I need to practice. You're going to help me practice.
We'll keep talking about it because
Okay.
we all need it.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. I hope you understand that self-esteem isn't a bad buzzword, but a really important way for you to see yourself and for you to see the good things in yourself and recognize those, as well as learning from your failures. Thanks for watching.